Hello, Tim here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about my favorite top 5 woods for carving. Will Rogers once said, "I never met a man I didn't like." I would probably change that to say, "I never met a tree I didn't like." Now, I like all woods, but there's just some I enjoy working with more than others. The woods that I'm going to share with you are my top. First of all, what's most important and how you choose what woods you're going to use is what's available in your area. The other thing is how costly is it. You want to know what your tools have to say about how you work with them. The tools will tell you if they like a piece of wood or not by how sharp they stay. Another factor that you need to think about is what purpose you're going to use your wood for. Is it going to be painted? In a previous video I did one of a life-size sculpture of a sea captain, and he was made out of sugar pine and he was painted. Some of these woods I wouldn't paint, but other ones are very suitable for painting if that's your purpose, like say outside ornament on a house. Otherwise, all these woods will finish well. My number 5 wood is the hardest of this bunch, and that's this yellow poplar here. This is what it looks like in the rough, which is what I usually do when I buy lumber, or at least I try to get it in the rough, because then it's a full inch thickness. When you buy lumber that's already milled, this is 3/4 inch, and it depends on what you want to do. So I'd say if I want to turn a plate and carve it, then I'd want to have my lumber rough, so I have more options, more material to work with. My number 4 is white pine, and white pine is a little softer than yellow poplar, but it carves very well. And the only problem I probably have with white pine is some of the knots that you get in there. So in between the knots, you got some clean wood. Even the knots aren't too hard to carve if it fits into your motif. If, like, say, you're carving a mantle front or something like that, and you want those knotty looks. But the knots will probably take the edge off your tool. You have to touch them up, but they're not too difficult to work with. My number 3 wood is basswood, and I have a chunk of basswood here that's been drying for a couple of years. This is from my backyard. These 3 woods here are probably the most available, but my favorite, and it's these two compete for my wood of choice, would be butternut. It's not a very easy wood to find. Now, in lumber form, this is a 12-inch wide board, a little bit over 12 inches wide. And you can still get it, it's just harder to get. I bought this from a guy who milled this. He wrote the date on here of I think 1980 or something like that. So this has been drying for a really long time. I bought it from him a few years ago. That would be perfect for a sculpture, a small little statuette or something like that. And I haven't decided what to do with that yet. It could make any one of these pieces of wood you can make bowls out of or something like that, but this is particularly good wood for sculpting, and I've used it for making furniture as well. So it'd make a nice pedestal for a table. Our dining room table is butternut legs that are turned and a walnut top, and I just love that combination. But my top choice, if I had one wood to work with, would be sugar pine. And that's this one here that I showed a little bit when I talked about my sea captain that I carved. This is like 4 inches thick, and you can get it in 1-inch lumber, but that's really hard to find now. It grows in California. It's called the king of the pines. It's the tallest pine tree, and it has super long cones. They can get up to about 20 inches or so. When I do sand, I don't like butternut. It tends to fuzz up a little bit. I mean, you can sand it okay, but it cuts clean. Basswood will kind of fuzz up a little bit when you sand it. Pine not so much. Yellow poplar hardly at all. So the yellow poplar is really good for things that are painted, and you can manipulate it, and it's relatively inexpensive. The bottom 3 are I would say affordable. And these two, haven't priced them out in recent years, but I just know that sugar pine is very hard to get nowadays. Fortunately, with carving, you don't need a lot, depending on what you're doing, of course, but if you're just doing a little statue or a little plaque or a wall thing, you can get what you need at a pretty good price. And one thing to consider is a sawmill locally, or somebody that's just cutting up wood in the backyard. And that's where I got my chunk of basswood from the backyard, and taking time to let it dry. This has been drying for over 30 years. Generally speaking, air-dried wood is 1 year per inch. And if you're not that patient, you just consider that a 1-inch board just takes 6 months. Some of these woods are very stable, so you can carve them a little bit on the green side and they'll be okay. I'm carving the end grain of basswood, and that's kind of my test, my end grain test. If you can work the end grain so it's clean and smooth without tearing and without dulling your tool up, the rest of the wood will work very nicely for you. So there it is. I hope this is helpful and useful information for you in choosing wood for your next project. Give it a thumbs up if you would, and subscribe if you would, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.